Yes. Thank you, Council.
Ready to go when you are, Madam Chair.
Sorry, that was the other Carrie. Okay. All right.
I think we're still waiting for Jim McGaffigan. I don't see him.
Oh, you know what? He just came into the room.
Yeah, he's in as an attendee.
Oh.
I'm in.
All right, excellent. We've got everybody here. So with that, I'm going to call this hearing of the Boston City Council's Ways and Means Committee to order. For the record, my name is Kenzie Bach. I'm the District 8 Councilor and the Chair of the Ways and Means Committee. This hearing is being recorded. It's being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and FiOS Channel 964. Today's hearing is on Docket 0809, which is a long name I'm going to read now. Message and order approving an appropriation order in the amount of $91,270,000 for the purpose of paying costs of designing, construction, equipping and furnishing a new building for the William E. Carter School that is to be built on the site of its current location at 396 Northampton Street in the city of Boston, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, and for which the city of Boston may be eligible for a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA. Said amount to be expended under the direction of the Public Facilities Department on behalf of Boston Public Schools. This is exciting. We're going to hear today about the Carter School. We're joined by BPS and by the Public Facilities Department that oversees the construction. And I'm also joined here by my colleague, Councillor Ed Flynn of District 2. Councillor Flynn, did you want to say any opening words? I know you're a strong advocate for the Carter School. So,
thank you, Councillor Bach. I want to say thank you to the Public Facilities team, to the Boston Public Schools, my friend Mark O'Connor, who's the principal, but also thank Treasurer Deb Goldberg, who oversees the Mass School Building Authority, and certainly the taxpayers of the city and in the state. But I just want to highlight the tremendous work of the Carter School, its principal, its teachers. They do exceptional work in helping our most challenged students, and they do it in a most positive environment. And there's no better hour I spend throughout the year than spending it with the students and the teachers at the Carter School. It's an honor to stop by there once in a while and say hello to everybody. So I'm just so proud of the teachers and the team at the Carter School, and I support the proposal in front of us. Thank you, Councilor Buck.
great. Thank you so much, Councillor Flynn. And yes, we're excited to be joined today by many members of the BPS school community, and I do see Principal O'Connor here with us. So welcome to him. I want to start off by passing it to Nate Cooter, the CFO of the Boston Public Schools, for some opening remarks. Nate, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman Bach, and thank you, City Council, for having us here. I am going to quickly turn things over to our expert team to jump into the details of the presentation, but I wanted to open by saying how excited I am for you to see this presentation. At a recent school building committee meeting, I got a sneak peek of the designs of the new Carter School, and you should all be prepared to be inspired. In Bill BPS presentations and throughout the budget process, I've been talking about, and the district superintendent have been talking about, how we need to reimagine what's possible for our students. And today's presentation is exactly what that looks like. And for those of you who may not know, or may be watching, the Carter School educates students with severe physical and health disabilities. Currently enrolling 25 students with complex medical needs. This school educates the most vulnerable students in our district. It's a special community, and I am here, and I'm honored to be here to support it. Before jumping into the agenda, I do want to take a moment to thank some of the people who've been working diligently to make this project successful. It starts, of course, with Mayor Janey and this council for your support of this project. There's been multiple approval up to this point. We thank you for that. Our partners at the city, Dion Irish, the Chief Operating Officer, and of course, Carrie Griffin from the Public Facilities Department. Also want to thank Jim McGaffigan, the Senior Project Manager at PFD, who's ushering this project through. We have two fantastic firms supporting this project, Hill International doing project management, and Perkins and Will, the architects for the project. And of course, he's been thanked once, but he should be thanked multiple times for the Carter School community, especially Mark O'Connor, who you're going to hear from in a minute. And lastly, I just want to thank the BPS project team, especially Sue McCann, who have done a lot of work on this. In today's presentation, we're going to provide an update on the project schedule, and we'll show you the schematic design. That's the fun part, showing you how amazing the school will look and how it is specifically designed to serve the students at Carter School. And we'll talk about the funding appropriation before turning it back over to you for questions. And so with that, I want to introduce Mark O'Connor, the head of school for the Carter School, to discuss the vision for the school and for the project.
Thank you, Nate. And, I just want to echo Nate's thoughts and just how grateful we are as a school community to be in a city, to be with a city council, a mayor, and a school district that really values our students and their learning above as high as any student in this district. We really feel that the support that we receive from our district and from our city and from our city council is what's leading us to be able to continue to improve the work that we're doing with our students so that we can increase the expectations and the outcomes educationally for all of our students. So thank you to Chair Bach, Councilor Flynn for your many visits to the Carter, Councilwoman George as well. We've had the privilege of hosting many of you over the last few years. And so you've been in the school, you've seen the great work that our staff and our students are doing, and also seen that we have a facility that isn't fully meeting the needs of our students and is creating barriers that we are so excited to be working with our design team from Perkins and Will and Hill International to remove for our students.
And thank you, Mark. I think at this point, we're going to turn it over to Carrie, who's going to walk us through some of the additional information. So with that.
Thank you, Nate. So good morning, counselors, and thank you so much for your time. It's my honor and privilege to introduce to you our project team. The PFD team has been engaged with the Carter School for the past 7 years and has celebrated One Boston Day with the school performing their garden cleanup to commemorate this day of remembrance. This is very much a labor of love for us, for the principal, the school staff, and the students. Joining me from PFD is our Chief of Staff, Nell Murphy, AD for Construction, Mary Silvera, Senior Project Manager, Jim McGaffigan. Our Owners Project Manager is Andy Felix from Hill International, and our design team from Perkins and Will is Brooks Trevis, and Derek Shin is operating the slides. I also want to acknowledge our partners at BPS, Nate Cooter, Mark O'Connor, and Sue McCann, as well as our partners at OBM. Chief Sterrett, Jim Williamson, Jack Hanlon, and their team. And a very special thanks to our partners at MSBA. These projects don't happen without their support, and we are grateful for their guidance, contributions, and support. Next slide. Okay, Mark.
So as many of you that have been out to Carter have seen, we are currently using a facility that was not designed for us. It is a 50-year-old temporary building. And to paint the picture of how this building is currently not meeting our students' needs, I want to remind you all that 2 of our students are not able to pass by each other in a hallway. We have a number of student bathrooms that are not big enough for students to access in their wheelchairs. And our school building does not have many of the educational spaces that our students require to meet their IEP goals and objectives. So when we looked at this project from the start and outlined and creating our goals and vision, we really wanted this to be a student experience centered project. And I'm thankful that we have a design team that has helped us do so. But when we think about the work that we're trying to accomplish with our students, everything that we do is about increasing each student's ability to communicate. So this became the guiding principle for our new building. We needed to create a 21st century school building for our students that removed all the barriers that we could and enhanced each student's ability to communicate. So this was the guiding vision and principle that we created when we set out this project. And then when our design team came on board, we were fortunate enough to create a visioning process that was inclusive of all community members, that was really driven by the expertise of our students, our families, and our staff, and was really centered about what would be the ideal educational experience for every one of our students to increase their ability to communicate. And I think when you see this presentation from the team from Perkins and Will, you will see that truly drove the educational programming and truly drove the design of this building, that it is very in tune with the needs of our students. And we are so excited for all the support that we've received to continue this effort.
Thank you, Mark. The following represents a flow chart based on the MSBA process and modules for each phase. VPS submitted their statement of interest for the Carter School in April of 2017 as part of the MSBA core program. In May of 2019, the city was invited to perform a feasibility study and establish our OPM and design team. We've had multiple submissions along this process, with the next submission of schematic design being the most critical and will establish the reimbursement rate for the project. Based on MSBA board approval in August 2021, we will move forward with the next phase of design, create an RFQ for our selection of CM at risk, and perform site assessments for swing space. We will start construction of swing space in June of 2022 for September 2022 start of school, and start demolition of existing school structure and new building. We are projecting approximately 2 years for a construction duration, and we will be complete in August of 2024. Now I'm going to turn this over to Brooke Trevis at Perkins and Will to take us through the schematic design process.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here today to present this very important project. As you already heard, the planning and schematic design phase has been a fantastic collaboration, resulting in the following work. The new Carter School will be located on the existing Carter School site. This is a strategic location off of Columbus Avenue on Northampton Street, conveniently located near the T and close to bus routes. The access for the Carter School bus parent drop-off will be maintained as a one-way vehicular route from Northampton Road. The Carter site is situated within the Northwest Corridor, intertwining between the greenery and the pedestrian walkway. This location allows for opportunities to visually and physically connect with the natural environment from the outdoor spaces and classrooms. The Carter School educational program was specifically developed for the Carter students and community to support the needs, their cognitive and physical needs, and the vision that Principal O'Connor previously outlined. Many of the programs defined for the new Carter School do not currently exist and are in much need to support their students. The first floor programs are welcoming to the students, staff, and public, and house many of the shared spaces for both the students and community. We are planning for the greatest flexibility and for current and future teaching pedagogies for this population. We hope to set a standard for this program typology. The administration is on the south side at the front of the building, adjacent to the controlled and secured access entry. After exiting the main vestibule at the heart of the building, there's a wonderful view of the Literacy Commons and collaborative space, well used by the Carter community for many activities, including the end of the day shout outs by Principal O'Connor and his staff. The delivery and loading is located on the west of Camden Street for direct vehicular access. Also on the west side of the plan is the therapy pool with its own controlled public access. The cafeteria is located on the east side near the music and art therapy spaces, all connected to the exterior sensory garden. And this open, flexible space allows for art to break out into that area and provide supplemental vocational support. The north side of the building houses a lot of the services and provides an acoustical barrier from any noise or possible vibration associated with the MBTA train. The second floor has nice views to the park and is designed around a looped circulation path. This floor houses the general classrooms for the middle and upper school students. There are toilets and changing areas inside each of the general classrooms. The loop corridor will double as an opportunity to support mobility training. The shared spaces such as adaptive PE, motor therapy, TVI, and SLP are central to the perimeter classrooms. The medical suite is located on this floor in close proximity to many of the Carter students on this level and to the level above. It is important to note there is an exterior secure space on this floor adjacent to adaptive PE, which can be used for a variety of teaching and learning opportunities. The third floor accommodates the smallest and youngest Carter students. The lower school's general classrooms have direct access to the exterior sensory garden for teaching, learning, and play. This exterior space at this level will be used by all students and Carter staff. The rear program on the north side of the building, like the other floors, houses the building services as well as the staff lunchroom and huddle rooms, putting additional adult hands near the younger students. This rendering illustrates the front of the Carter School, showing the vehicular approach and the intersection at the southwest corridor. You can see a glimpse of the elevated sensory garden above the second floor and the shade structure for the students' activities. The scale of the school is reduced because the third floor volume, which houses those lower school classrooms, is pulled back from the first and second floor facade. This reduction in scale helps the building blend in with the surrounding neighborhood. This image illustrates a detail of the facade showing the glazing at one of the general classrooms. This facade is a terracotta material with a neutral color palette with a rain screen facade system on the first floor and classroom level. We spent a lot of time thinking about the student experience with Principal O'Connor and his staff. We worked with our researchers at Perkins & Will to create a rigorous daylight study to help minimize glare on the south-facing classrooms. The research, along with input from the staff, informed a design that worked to improve the student experience by creating a passive solar buffer for students who are very sensitive to glare. The goal was to maintain a balance between usable daylight, glare controls, interior surfaces for teaching, and ensure there are great exterior views for the students. This section shows the MBTA building, tracks, and the Carter School. The new building is zoned with an auditory buffer on the north side. In the middle, there are therapy spaces and interior and exterior classroom away from the noise with views to the neighborhood. We spent a lot of time talking about the equity of landscape, creating inclusive sensory gardens on all three levels. Levels for students to have active play, community spaces, restorative, and sensory spaces, including a separate outdoor space in the third floor garden for staff to recharge because we know they need it as well. This image illustrates a more close-up view of the sensory garden on the east side, right outside the cafeteria, showing the splash pad and sensory area for musical equipment and performance, all accessible. This is another detail of that dining extension off of the interior cafe, which also can be used for community events where you can flow the inside right into the outside. This is the third floor, a peek of the third floor garden, and it's showing the active play areas and sensory garden with a bit more detail showing the equipment and how the students might utilize this area. This is an aerial view of the southwest, looking sort of at the intersection of the southwest corridor along the entry sequence. The third floor exterior garden is clear in this image, illustrating the restorative calm spaces, teaching areas, and shade structure. In addition, you can see on the east side of the building, the ground level sensory garden. We wanted to put this slide in here to highlight some of the sustainability goals and resilient features for the new Carter School. There's an improved mechanical system using MERV 13 and 14 infiltration system, And the generator and HVAC units are located on the rooftop, away from any potential flooding. This allows the building to operate in the event of any high water levels in surrounding areas. We're targeting LEED Silver, and plants will be selected that are drought resistant to conserve and reduce water. We have a high performance envelope design, rain screen system, and high performance glazing and curtain wall systems. We have a projected EUI of 30.6. We're participating in Mass Save incentive programs through Eversource as a provider of the electric power. And the building is mostly fully electric with the exception of the generator, which is designed to use diesel fuel for the event of the need for standby power. So that's a quick summary, and we're happy to answer questions later of the schematic design. I'll turn it over to, I think, Andy or Carrie.
Thank you, Brooke. We will talk about the project funding next. So the total project budget is $91,966,532. The exact details of the MSBA grant offer is pending the upcoming meeting with the Board of Directors on August 25th. It's at that meeting that we will know exactly the amount of the grant offer, which will be based off of the reimbursement rate of 64.31% of eligible costs. So a lot of the submission details includes a preliminary calculation, but all of the details get worked out by the MSBA over the next couple of weeks into leading up to the meeting on the August 25th, at which point we will know exactly the anticipated reimbursement grant by the MSBA. So previous appropriations for this project was $1.6 million. The docket presented to you today consists of the balance of the Carter School project of $90,366,532. The cost of issuance, $903,468 for a total amount of $91,270,000. So which the total project appropriation, including the 1.6 previously approved, is $92,870,000. And with that, I will turn it over back to the council for questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Andy. And thank you for that wonderful presentation to the whole team. It is really exciting. It was right. And I also want to acknowledge Councilor Asabi George, who joined us right as the presentation was getting going, City Councilor at Large. Yeah, so a couple of questions from me. One is just on that last slide. So I understand that we could get a reimbursement of 64.31% of eligible cost. Do we have a sense of how much of the 92,870 is eligible?
Preliminary calculations are somewhere in the mid 50 millions, but that won't be determined exactly what that is until we have the project scope and budget meeting with MSBA, which is slated for early August. We don't have the exact date we're going to meet with them. So at that meeting, we'll know exactly what the value is, and the formality of the vote will make it official on the 25th of August.
Got it. And so we basically think that just for my edification, like what types of things are eligible versus non-eligible costs, like in terms of the 50, and then it sounds like the 40 that's non-eligible, like what are the categories?
Sure. Just give me 1 second and pull out my cheat sheet on my side. So typically legal fees, swing space costs, moving costs, hazardous material, site work, things like that are not typically eligible. Pools with most schools are typically not eligible. However, we've had multiple discussions with SBA on this specific project because it's so unique and it is part of the student's IEP that there is a chance the MSBA may participate, but we don't have an idea yet. They've talked about it, hinted, but they've not exactly committed to participating with that part of the project. So those things are what will be presented to us, and we'll have a chance to ask questions of the MSBA at that first meeting that we have with them beginning of August. So that's why some things aren't applicable, because this is not a standard school project.
Got it. Yeah, and that was my follow-up question was, it seems like that split is high. It seems like a high ratio of non-eligible costs to a typical school building. Am I right on that instinct?
Yeah.
And how much of that has to do with things that are those, like you were talking about, those accessible features that are less standard, and how much of it has to do with sort of things like environmental mitigation and sort of the site, nature of the site?
So we certainly have studied the site. There are some known, as one example, perceived hazardous materials below the site. A lot of those they won't participate in, but at least we've identified what those are, and that will remain on the city side of the, I'll call it the financial ledger. So the form, which we can certainly share, it's part of the submission. It has very detailed calculations that ultimately the MSBA has formulated and will really determine the details of it. We can take some guesses on our part, but it's really determined by the MSBA prior to and at that meeting of what's called the project scope of budget review meeting. On most projects, I think it happened with Josiah Quincy, that meeting already occurred before the appropriation was presented to the council, I believe end of last year. In this case, it's happening before the meeting with the MSBA.
Right. And so I'll just for Nate and others, I'm aware of the timeline, and I think we're all very excited about this project, and I'm certainly planning to move it to a first vote at our July meeting, but I will want the follow-up documentation because you guys are having the project scope meeting before the council's second vote on the capital docket will happen. And so I would like, because we're doing this a little out of order, for the council to know what it's effectively authorizing in terms of city money. That would be good. And do we feel reasonably confident on that environmental hazard side that we've got a pretty good sense of what we have to deal with? I ask just because that is a place where project budgets balloon sometimes.
We're fairly confident, obviously, by probing. Obviously, there are instances where you probe 2 feet away from a hazard that wasn't found. So within the contingencies in the budget, we've allowed a little bit more of a buffer to deal with unanticipated unforeseens below the ground.
Good. And what was the use of the site before the temporary building went up?
I apologize. I'll have to do some research. I'm not sure what was there off the top of my head, but I do know there was a glass type of facilities a long time ago. We can pull that information up again and share that with you all. But there are 2 uses of the site in history. It's just escaping me the exact details.
All right. Well, I've got some more questions about back on the program stuff, but I'll turn it over right now to my colleague, Councillor Flynn, for his questions. Councillor Flynn?
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Buck. I guess I have just two quick questions. During the design phase and seeking input from the students and from the teachers and the staff, just curious, and from my visits, I also noticed that there were a lot of parents that would also go to the school as well, or caregivers or guardians. Just curious, what type of environment at the school will there be for, guardians or parents as they talk to the teachers and talk to their children and work closely with the administration? What type of environment will the parent or guardian have at the school?
So as you know, Councillor Flynn, families are at the center of our work with our students. We are firm believers that in our support of our families in the world of disability, in the world of education, that support is a key driver of our student success and our students' learning. One thing that is a non-negotiable for us through this process was we needed to have a warm, welcoming building for all of our students and all of our families. And right at the front of the building, when you walk in, would not only be within the administrative office is we are devoting a section for our family liaison that's been with us for years and our social work team, so that families have their familiar faces in a welcoming environment right when they come in. We were excited because one of the positives of the pandemic has been our beginning to have this remote access and remote support with our families. So really welcoming our families beyond just the walls, and the things that we're able to creatively do over Zoom in supporting families with communication in the home that we weren't able to do before has really changed our practice. And so when we feel like combining that welcoming environment, ensuring that families know when they come, they will be able to communicate in their native language is another non-negotiable for us at all of our meetings. Ensuring that we have that language support in-house is going to continue to be part of that work beyond just the building schematics. And I know Brooke probably has a few things to add on about the design as well.
I would just say that it was an incredible process around visioning, and we were all virtual, and it was really at the beginning of the pandemic, and we had 8 days and 8 two-hour sessions of just incredible sort of participation among so many people. I think at one point we had over 60 people on the call. We did exercises, we got homework. There is a website that we can put it in the chat, if we can put something in the chat, where you can find all of the exercises, documents, recordings of the sessions to ensure that it was completely participatory. So I'm really impressed with the school, and it was probably a visioning session that we would repeat under non-pandemic circumstances because it was so inclusive.
And the MSBA has actually reached out to us and wants to really incorporate that inclusive work that we did as part of their model going forward after they've seen the results.
Thank you, Mark. I guess my final question would be more of an engineering related question. I focus a lot on the council working on water and sewer related issues. Did you guys weigh in or seek the input of the Water and Sewer Commission in are there any potential related issues during construction or after or post construction? But just wanted to see what any feedback Water and Sewer may have provided on this design.
So I would say, Council, we have not reached out directly to them yet. We incorporate, water retention through the design, but we have not in terms of where we are currently with design and schematic, but we will be doing that as part of our next effort of design for design development.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Kerry. And maybe my final question is, I know where the parking lot is, Mark, where the building is now. What type of drive up will parents or guardians provide, or will BPS transportation provide as they drop off the student at the front desk or at the front door, and then if it's a parent and they have to leave? What type of engineering transportation related challenges might you have, or can you just go through that process a little bit?
So one of the main factors that we have that when we look at our current building, what really works is that front entrance, is that entrance into the school for our students. And part of that is the bus overhang that was built by the Mass College of Art a few years, actually I say a few, but it was about 15 years ago now. And so part of the design that we knew we needed in that building was having that bus overhang so that when our students are exiting the bus on the wheelchair lift, which might take a few minutes, that in the rain and conditions that, precipitation that we are having right now all the time, our students aren't entering school soaking wet in their wheelchairs and needing that change. So For the bus, it's really been incorporated into that front entrance. Our procedures of running only having a few buses at a time, letting students off, that will all continue. And as far as our families access, we will continue to have parking that we would have always reserved for families if they're going to be coming to the school. And the other main piece of access for our families is the majority of our families are accessing our school through public transportation currently. So that part of figuring out, early stage, where would this school be built? We were pretty adamant that we needed to remain on site. And one of the major reasons being, number one, the central location of our school within the city. Since we are a citywide school, not wanting families to be commuting completely across the city in order to access the school, but also where we're positioned now, we're right in between Ruggles Station, right at Mass Ave Station, and right near Back Bay Station, along with the number 1 bus stop. We are very accessible for public transportation for both our families and for our students to be able to access the community that way. But to your point, it wasn't for us. It's not just about the main drop-off parking lot. Needing to be fully accessible in that way for public transit, that is an easy way for all of our families to get to school, was a part of that thinking and making it this welcoming environment right at the door.
Thank you, Mark and Kerry and the professionals that are on this call, as well as people behind the scenes. You're doing an outstanding job. Council Bach, I have no further comments.
Great. Thank you so much, Councillor Flynn. And I should have noted before, we were also joined by our President Pro Tem, Councillor Matt O'Malley from District 6. A couple more questions from me. I was wondering, and Principal O'Connor, this might be for you. I was excited to see in the summary that the idea is that this facility would also allow the school to expand from those 25 to 60 students. Can you speak a little bit about sort of like, what does the wait list look like now? Is that expansion about adding grades? Is it about taking more students? Is it about being able to accommodate out of district placements? Like how should we understand that shift?
I think you just nailed it. It is really, when we project that, the number of 60 was projected out. Part of one of our early goals was to become a full pre-K through 12 and through postgraduate age 22 school, to be in line with our peer schools that are the approved public day schools, private schools such as Perkins School for the Blind, Boston College Campus School, and others, because we feel that when we did this visioning work, providing that consistent pathway for our students would allow us to really, from an early age with students, have that focus on a communication environment that is going to best meet the students' needs to become the most fluent communicators through augmentative communication that each student can be. So that was part of the proposal. And when we explored enrollment with the special education office and with the Mass School Building Authority, it was looking at a number of things where students potentially coming back in district, which has been a trend over the last few years with us. We don't have a wait list, and that is because we are, as a school, we are an IEP service delivery. So to have a student enrolled in our school, it is a referral from an IEP team, including the parent and the current school placement team. And there is no comparable placement for our age group within the city. So if a student is referred to Carter and there is no space in Carter, that student then is referred for an out-of-district placement. So that's where we're currently at now. And I think that the district might be able to provide more numbers around that. But our goal in this process would not necessarily be to try to bring every student back into the district, but because we're a firm believer that if a student is in an educational placement that is working really well for them and their family, that's not something we're looking to interrupt. But we do believe that our ability to start at age 3 and provide a 21st century school facility and educational program that's a national model will potentially reduce out of district placements going forward. But the majority of that enrollment would be an increase from the younger grades and then also increased capacity in the older grades. but you hit on, the kind of feeder patterns that we're projecting out.
Got it. No, that's great to hear. And Nate, do we have any numbers on sort of what the number of hypothetical referrals to the Carter that we've had to then just open up to out-of-district placements in the last few years, just to get a sense of that? I mean, I totally agree with Mark. It's not about clawing families back who are already somewhere good, but thinking about the future. Do you have a sense of that?
I don't have the exact numbers, but I think, as Mark pointed out, this is the projection of 60 represents a good estimate from the 25 for how many kids we think we can start to serve more. Some of the students are served in other programs in BPS where we would start to integrate them into the Carter School community, but I would have to work with special education to identify kids with similar sort of IEPs that are out of district right now and give you that estimate. I don't know, Mark, if you, or Sue, if you have more specifics, but all of that, I don't have that now.
Yeah, I guess mainly I just want to make sure, and I'm sure because you guys have all kicked the tires on this, that it just feels like if we're since we're building such a state-of-the-art school, making sure that we're gonna really have the capacity. Like I'd hate for it really to be 70 or 80. You know what I mean? Just in terms of like, thinking about if we're doing this great model, how we provide it to as many of our Boston kids as possible. So,
yeah, and that has certainly been. This project has been, multiple years in the making, and I can remember a conversation Mark and I had. Feels like a lifetime ago because the last year and a half has been 10, but it was probably 3 or 4 years ago where we first started to do some of the initial enrollment projections where we submit to the MSBA what our best estimate is. And we had that exact conversation, making sure that we open this new resource to as many families and students as possible. And I think, I would just also say one of the things we're always looking for our certified day schools is sort of that least restrictive environment. And I think for these students, this becomes the least restrictive environment because it is an environment that is designed for them to find success and interact and learn in new and different ways. But then there is also still the need for us as a district to be looking for students to be with their gen ed peers. And so that is always sort of the push-pull of, students who will look at the facilities and want to participate in the Carter, but then also that we want to make sure that they are integrated into sort of our general education school programs as well. So I do assure you, we have done a lot of due diligence, and I think, we, are hoping that these are all of our school facilities as we start to build them will be more inclusive environments and will leverage some of the design elements we've learned from the Carter School. As Mark mentioned, the 2 students passing in the hallway, that's a challenge that we would see in any school. And so we really, this is really opening my eyes and giving us a clear demonstration of what moving away from ADA compliance to a definition of full inclusion. It's exciting. Sorry, I stepped a little bit onto a bit of a soapbox there because this project does get me so excited, but I appreciate the question.
No, that's great to hear. No, and I agree. And I think, both thinking about the hallway space and then just all of this accessible outdoor space, it's really exciting to see. And glad to see also the building using MERV 1314 filters. That would have been a question otherwise. Certainly, I know we're all concerned about ultrafine particles, and then with COVID, it's really come to the fore. So I know we took good steps on the Josiah Quincy on that, but glad to see it happening here as well. Mark, were you going to say something?
Nope.
Okay. And then I was wondering, Carrie, this might be a question for you, but if you could just walk through a little bit more about the 149A construction manager at risk model and how that works and whether we've done that before and sort of how the council should understand that from a procurement perspective.
Sure. Thank you, Council, for the question. So 149A is Chapter 149A is CM at risk. And essentially that's what our department utilizes, that method of procurement for larger projects. MSBA requires it in terms of, which is, if we were putting out, we get our OPM and designer are given to us through the Msba selection process. So typically we would send out an RFQ for that, similar to how we will be be preparing that for requests for qualifications for different contractors. And then, we will get those at the RFQ advertised. Then we will go from there. We will do a short list, and then we will do interviews. And then it's a qualification-based type of procurement. So we will procure based on that, award based on that. And, we'll be developing that RFQ over the next few months so that we can get that out in probably September of this year.
And just so I'm clear, or I think I understand it, but for members of the public watching at home, if we had a project that was, hey, we need this much asphalt poured, to repair this section of road, we just put that out and we say, hey, how much is somebody going to do this for, right? And they'll give us a quote, and then we're hiring the lowest person, right? Because we're trying to save your tax dollars. And that's kind of a standard procurement for something that's very cut and dry like that. But of course, like when you do a roadway project like that, it's pretty cut and dry. You're not saying like, oh, actually we have a change order and we'd like you to build a building in the middle of it, right? Like it's very consistent. But then with something like the school, like depending on those environmental conditions and other things that come up, like you might need adjustments along the way, and it's big and complicated, right? So am I right in understanding that the construction manager at risk means instead of us doing a bunch of filed sub bids for every little component and having the cost fixed and everything kind of set, there's a bit more like project flexibility, and the project manager is kind of saying, I can do this whole thing for this number.
That's right? Well, yes, we have to enter into, we get them on board based on our estimate. And then we have to enter into, and that won't happen probably till the spring of next year, a guaranteed price from the GC once they're selected. So, but we still do filed sub bid in terms of they'll put together those packages with the design team, and we still do it's a qualification based. So they have to, the filed sub bids have to qualify, and then we will select based on those qualifications. And that will be done through the GC. The benefit of having a Chapter 149A is that we bring the contractor on early. So to your point of the hazmat, we do some more exploratory on that. We'd have a contractor on board. They're really a partner, in this process. So, we bring them on early. They can help us out with really taking deep dives into the estimate. And making sure our numbers are good, making sure our budget's good, looking at drawings, for scope prior to going out to filed sub bid for the project. So, yeah, it's very much a partnership, and I know this project will garner a ton of interest. We're already getting calls on it, so we're excited. We can't wait to bring someone on board and get the RFQ prepared and out for advertisement.
Mm-hmm. And do you guys, oh shoot, I just forgot my question. Well, I guess, can you speak a little bit about how you're thinking about, I know the last time I think we had PFD, we were talking about the sort of equitable procurement strategy for the city, and we've talked repeatedly about challenges on that front with these big construction projects. Can you speak at all on that?
Sure. Actually, I'm glad you asked that, because we are currently working with our partners at the CFO's office, Equity Procurement, our procurement office. We meet bi-weekly, and we're looking at doing a pilot program so that we can, whether that's going to be, again, it's in its preliminary stages, but we're looking at how we can, increase our, for women, minority, and veteran-owned businesses, so that we can, it's in its very preliminary stages, but we are looking at addressing those issues, maybe as incentivizing, maybe some goals, maybe some of the RFQ that would be in terms of, because again, it is a points-based system, so our department is actively working with multiple departments across the city to address these issues. So,
but do you think that any of that work is going to bear fruit in actual adjustments to this RFQ?
It could. Right now we're working on, and we're thinking of doing our first pilot with the Court Street renovation project. We're meeting tomorrow actually as the team to kind of hash that out with legal guidance, because everything we do is based on the statute. And so we'll be working with both, our partners across the city really to see if we can, generate something that will work and that is fair. So, when we did meet this team that I'm referencing met with DCAM and some partners with the state, we're all taking a look at this. And, as myself personally, as a woman in construction, as a veteran and of a mother of a son that's currently deployed, this is very important to me, this program. So I think it is in its very preliminary stages, but we're hoping to see some impact by the fall.
Good. No, that's great to hear. I think it's really important. And I think that we all know that these school building projects are some of the biggest expenditures that the city does. So we definitely, we want them in the mix of those programs, right? And not just sort of us staying around the edges on the other things. And sorry, on the filed sub bids, did you say they're qualification based? So does that mean that, so within the overall thing, when we go to the sub bids, do we have to take the lowest bidder, or are we able to make a qualifications-based judgment?
No, it's lowest eligible and most responsible, but we do get to choose who we qualify.
Right. Okay.
So if we have bad actors, then they wouldn't qualify. So their bid wouldn't, it wouldn't get to that stage.
Mm-hmm. And have you, Carrie, sorry, it's a bit of a mix of questions, but just because obviously we have had so many really tragic construction safety incidents in the city in the last year. Have you guys worked on, I know there's some questions have arisen about whether we're adequately tagging bad actors on those fronts so that when we're doing these qualifications, we're ruling them out. Do you have any updates on that?
We're required, especially on the larger projects, to do a 50% evaluation on the contractors for DCAM, and then we do a final evaluation on contractors. And so, yes, if we have bad actors on the project, whether it's safety, whether it's, contract related, those things are identified on our evaluation sheets, and they're taken very, very seriously because it impacts their future work, not just for the city, but with this other municipalities. So it's important to us that we have manage and maintain safe job sites. There's certain requirements in terms of OSHA that are required for training, that you're only allowed to be on the job site if you have a certain amount of training. But there's also, we require a safety plan from our contractors on our sites, and most, if not all, they take this safety of their people and our people very seriously. But there, again, to your point, there are some bad actors, or there's some complacency on, with some people. So we try, our job sites also require a safety officer, not a full-time, but they do require someone that is designated as that. And if and for our department, we want to make sure that, we empower our people, that if they see an unsafe condition, they're to address it immediately. So.
Yeah, no, I just think it's so important to the council. And again, my colleague, Councillor Flynn, who's here with us, has been a real leader on this, that when we're talking about these big projects, there was a lot of concern specifically about folks self-reporting on the OSHA violations, right? And on us missing that, right? So I think we're all pretty concerned about that getting caught. We're very concerned about making sure there's no wage theft happening on city projects. And of course that, we've got folks who are really proactively pursuing the Boston residents job policy and not kind of just doing the bare minimum on that front. So yeah, just again, I think really appreciate all your due diligence on that front with these big school projects, because they're such an important part of our expenditures each year. And what about on construction materials? How is the cost increases? How are those affecting us? Like, does this estimate reflect where lumber's at right now and such, or what's the latest on that?
We'll do multiple estimates throughout the phase. So we have an estimate for, and again, we've allocated a lot of allowances. So if anything, we have to design to our current budget. And if, if we are over budget by the next estimate, which is the 60% drawings, then we will have to start value engineering some of our design down. Unfortunately, we don't want to get there. I think we have a good estimate based on the current design. But we would, my thing is design to your budget. And so unless there's something that, we uncover, but, I think right now we have a really great team, and, that's their marching orders. And basically that's what that's why this submission is critical to, for the MSBA, because this will set the rate of return based on what our current budget is.
It does reflect the current market conditions. So all those material escalations right now are reflected in our estimates. So we hope that things might stabilize and maybe the Carter School will reap the benefits. If they don't, we have incorporated those upcharges in this SD schematic design estimate.
And Brooke, we have also an escalation cost too for, I think, 6% for each year. So that, on top of that. So I think we do have, I think we've developed a good budget.
And contingency, design contingency.
Right.
So we have both of those.
Yeah, and everyone on the project has really been focusing on protecting the programming as well. So in all of our conversations, so, I've very much appreciated that, from the PFD team to the city to our Perkins and Will team.
Great, fantastic. And can you tell us, Mark, a little bit about what's the swing space? How's that going to work in the interim while this is being built?
I can take that question. We are currently in the process of working with the firm to finalize our swing space. We're evaluating a number of different sites. As you can imagine, we want to make sure that there's enough space to run the program, and then also that the BPS facility will be adequately accessible for all the students. And so we are in the process of finalizing that in the next few weeks, and do not anticipate that causing any challenges for the project schedule. But we're not yet quite ready to sort of state finally where that will be. But it will be in a current BPS facility.
Got it. Okay. And then, and when do you anticipate that being public, Nate?
We'll probably share it with the Carter School community first. And Mark O'Connor is very involved in that project. I should probably defer to Carrie in terms of the actual timeline, because I don't want to commit for the assessment. They're doing the assessments over the next week and a half, 2 weeks, and we should have a decision here shortly. They're usually waiting on us, being me and the BPS leadership team. So that's why I don't want to make it seem like they're causing any of the delays.
No, we'll look at the sites that we've been given, and then we will make an assessment of those in terms of what's the most fiscal responsible, what's the best program for the children, and what can we achieve in 2 months to do a swing space. So we want to make sure, obviously, like our infrastructure is there for for the program, but what we can achieve over that small window of time. And we will prepare, that will be something that will be part of the project, and it'll be the first probably pre-construction services from our general contractor or our CM at risk. So again, they'll help develop that work, and that estimate piece is included in this overall budget.
Oh, good. That was my next question. So we do actually have the swing space fit out as part of this.
Yes, we actually gave, and again, it's just, and it's a assumption, but I think we put in a good allowance so that we can, I don't think we'll be spending what we've allocated, for that piece, but we wanted to make sure, because we weren't sure at the time, where we were going to put the children for the swing space. But I think we have, again, and if we don't need it, we don't use it. So it goes back into the overall budget. But we will be doing that exercise over the next few weeks, because we need to get something, locked in and then start designing that space fit out for the children so we can start construction in June, end of school year next year.
Got it. And Mark, would you mind, sorry, I'm nearly done. Just Mark, would you mind just clarifying for me in terms of like, I mean, it's obvious, I think to anybody who saw the presentation that there are many things in this new proposed building that are not in the current building. Right. But if you could just walk through a little bit one more time, like, you know, what are the grades we serve now? What are the grades we're going to serve in the new building? And then what are the facilities in the new building that are new? Like, I understand there's a number that are updated, but in terms of like things we just don't have at all right now that we would have in the new building.
Yep. And I'll preface this with some things we have in name only in our current building that I wouldn't classify, such as a gym. So currently we serve grades 7 through 12. So with that being of ages 12 or 13 through age 22. So students stay at Carter generally until their 22nd birthday, which is when students then transition to adult services and adult placements. So right now we have 5 classrooms with 5 students in each classroom. And we will be transitioning to serve students starting at age 3. So we will have students that will transition from early intervention and along with other different referral points along the way, because again, we want to empower families to make their decision about their child's school placement and what they view as the least restrictive environment for their child. What we currently have outside of classroom spaces in our building is a closet with a heating station that acts as our lunchroom, but students cannot enter that room. So lunches are done in the classroom at this point. We have what's called a gym that is this awkward L-shaped carpeted room where it's not big enough for 5 students in a class to play an active adapted physical education game. So we will be having now more of a half-court size gymnasium that our students will be able now to truly access adapted physical education through the winter months when outdoors isn't an option. We also, in the current building, we have a multi-purpose small sensory room that is where the OT and the PT can, fight for square footage to provide pull-out services for students. And we have a small office space that operates as our shared speech and language pathologist and teacher of the visually impaired space. With that said, our model is to provide as many services within the classroom as we can, because we believe that leads to modeling of things like communication skills for other staff members working with students, but also for other students. In the new building, we are going to have a therapeutic pool where we currently, obviously we didn't do it this year because of the pandemic, but we currently travel 1 day a week where about 6 to 10 students at a time are able to access a pool at the Papas Rehabilitation School in Canton for 1 hour a week. Most students are able to then go maybe once a month to that. We will have that on site in our current building. We also will have a music therapy and art therapy space where currently those services are, delivered on a cart that goes around into the classroom. And within those spaces, the opportunity for one-to-one music therapy spaces and different art spaces. Another aspect that we're really excited for, I mentioned the cafeteria before. This, I think, shows a good idea of how the visioning of student-centered experience influenced all of our decisions, where about 60% of our students are not accessing the BPS lunch services and are receiving their food through G-tube feeds. But when we think about what we're doing as a school and our focus on communication, when we look at all of our formal communication assessments, one of the areas that we hadn't been showing the growth over the last few years that we'd like to see is around social communication and peer-to-peer communication. And when we thought about a cafeteria long and hard and thought about eating being one of the least significant moments that take place in that setting for most students across the district, and it really being the center of a lot of socialization in our schools. So by instituting that, we decided that we need to provide that social communication space within the building. So we're very excited to have that space be not just for lunches, but for a really targeted approach to systematically teaching social communication. We also are going to be having a library within our building and a media center that we haven't had. All of our books are in the classroom now, and we, as much as we want literacy right in front of our students in the classroom, the ability to have that space where people can walk into our building and see our students as learners, and our students can see the learning happening around them when they're 3, 4, 5, seeing their older peers accessing assistive technology in those spaces, literacy instruction, which is such a evidence-based practice for communication development. And then finally, the one space that we do have in our current building that works really, really well is our outdoor sensory garden. That space was designed 12 years ago for our students through grant funding that the school did. And it really has become the active center of our community with touch activated water features for our summer program that, if it wasn't raining out, we'd be seeing happening in the next few hours here. We really learned a lot from that space and what an environment that is engaging and is stimulating for our students and accessible can do for their learning, and really wanting to create that safe outdoor exploratory space in our new building that the rooftop garden is going to provide is going to be incredible for us. And we're just, we really believe that as we've gone through this process, as we've created the spaces that we need to remove, or the barriers that our entire team and our entire community has thought of, that this building is doing so.
Thank you. Thanks for that summary. I think it's clear how much this is going to add for our students' education in the city of Boston. It's really exciting. One thing that I'd love to see somewhere in the building, and I don't think this is a cost item, but I've been talking a lot with folks about honoring the city's all the city's history, including its Black history, and obviously the building, right? Sergeant William E. Carter is named for a Black veteran, I think, of the Spanish American and World War I, and wondering whether you guys are thinking to have anywhere in the space that people would sort of like learn that history and have it go from being just a name on the sign.
Yeah, we'd love to. And, a few years ago, again, right before the pandemic, we had an amazing just drop-in visit from some of our friends at the William E. Carter Legion Post out in Mattapan. So they were excited about sharing the history with us and looking for different artifacts as they were up for one of their anniversaries of their process. So they would be a great group to partner with for that.
Yeah, we would love to incorporate that. We also know that Martin Luther King had an address, and I see that you're a lecturer at social studies and you teach intellectual history and history of philosophy at Harvard. So I'm happy you mentioned that, and I should have put it in the presentation, but we do know that there was an address of Martin Luther King. That's important to us and the community, as well as other aspects of the history. So we'll find a way to tell that story and that narrative in the building as we move forward with possibly the branding and some sort of wonderful attributes to that story that we can tell. So thank you for bringing that up, and we will keep you informed as to what we do.
Yeah, no, I think that would be great. And I think when you're rebuilding a building, it's the chance to incorporate some things in a more permanent way that helps young people know that history. Councillor Flynn, I think that's finally all my questions. I know you said you were done, but I wanted to give you one more chance if you wanted to say anything.
Thank you, Council Bach. I don't have any further questions. I just want to say thank you again to the, I don't have any further questions. I just want to say thank you again to the team that presented today, and thank you for all your hard work.
Yes, no, and I'll add my thanks to Councillor Flynn's, and I really think this is a very exciting project, and we're excited that the MSBA, selected it in the first place and that we are eligible for that reimbursement. It's exciting. As I mentioned earlier, I'll certainly be recommending this for a first vote to the city council at our meeting next week. It will then, because it's a capital docket, need a second vote in August. So I will follow up, Nate, with you and your team. I think we definitely would like to have some of that, further info about what's reimbursable. I just, with an appropriation order, like to be able to tell the council what we actually anticipate the sort of bonded funds to be and how much reimbursement we think we're going to get. And there were a few other questions just in terms of the previous use of the site and stuff. Love to follow up on, but I couldn't be more excited about this project. So thank you all so much. And just Carrie and Nate, any final words before we sign off?
No, I just want to thank everyone for their time. We really appreciate it. And we're very excited about this project. We can't wait to get going on it, get shovels in the ground. But we're very, very excited about this and working with, we have an excellent team and we're in the school, working with the school. So no, thank you very much for your time, counselors.
Great. Thank you, Carrie. Nate, anything?
No, Carrie said it best. Thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes, thank you all. And with that, this hearing of the Boston City Council's Ways and Means Committee is adjourned. Have a good afternoon, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.